My name is Trisha, and I'm a librarian at the Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library in Tampa, Florida. We are back again this week for Facebook Live. I'm joined by my colleague, Allie.
Hello.
And we will be doing live book recommendations for you for the next half hour. So if you have a favorite book and you want something similar, or a genre that you're looking for something new, or you're just in a reading rut and you want to find something that's exciting, tell us down in the comments below and we will give you some recommendations and hopefully help you find your next great read.
Yes.
So we have, I always like to read on a theme, especially if there's something that's going on, you know, in the greater world. So September 15th started Hispanic Heritage Month, and one of our colleagues actually just sent me an email and recommended a book that she just finished. So I put it at the top of my holds list. It's The House of Broken Angels by Luis Alberto Urrea. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, but and she said it's very, very good. And he has about 5 books out, which is, and an interesting thing about this book is he actually reads the audiobook, which sometimes can be, you know, a blessing or a curse. But she said he does a really good job with the audiobook. So she recommended that, so I moved it at the top of my list so I can get in some Hispanic heritage reading. Do you ever do that? Do you read on a theme, or?
I do read on a theme, and coming back to the author narrating it, I generally like it when the author's the narrator on the audiobook. I think that they can just add a little more depth to the different characters, and what I really like is at the end of the audiobook when there will be kind of a sit-down interview with the author. I think that gives us a little more insight into their writing process and maybe what they're planning for upcoming books in the series. Although I have to say I have had it happen to me before where I liked the book and then I listened to the author's interview at the end of it and I thought, wow, that kind of ruined it a little bit for me. It took away some of the magic that I was experiencing with the book. So I guess it, you know, it can go either way with that. But I do like to read on different topics depending if there's like a holiday coming up or a certain type of a celebration. And with this being Hispanic Heritage Month, I read the, what was the name of the book? Oh, How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, and that was by Julia Alvarez. Have you ever read that one?
I haven't, but it's funny, I actually own the ebook of that because, you know, if I find an ebook deal, then, you know, I'll pick it up. So I have it. It's on my list to read. I just haven't got around to it yet. So I've heard it's very good.
Yes, I definitely recommend it. I thought it was, you know, funny at times. It's about 4 sisters that moved from the Dominican Republic during the 1960s to New York, and you're kind of experiencing their experience during this move and kind of the culture change for them. And it's kind of, you know, how they're stopping to speak Spanish, straightening their hair to fit in, you know, with American culture, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good book, so I recommend it to you, and I recommend it to others to read or listen to if you're doing the audiobook as well.
Very nice, very nice. And so I'm gonna come back to this for just a second.
Okay.
I definitely enjoy when the author reads the book. A lot of times, especially if it's an entertainer or a comedian. Like last week we talked about Mindy Kaling reading her audiobook. Jenny Lawson reads her audiobooks for Let's Pretend This Never Happened and Furiously Happy, and it's very good to add something. However, I do think that there are some authors who writing can be a very solitary activity, and they like that about it, where it maybe doesn't add something extra. So I'm back and forth. I definitely think that the author can add something extra, but you know, it kind of depends. So we do have some comments that have posted up already. First recommendation is for true crime, which in this case I'm gonna have to go old school classic because that's what I tend to do, and say In Cold Blood by, his name just left me, help me, Truman Capote. Okay, it was coming back. And I realize that's a classic, but some people have not picked it up, and I definitely think that it's one that you should read if you're looking for true crime. There are also some very good ones depending on what you're looking for. If you like unsolved mysteries, which I kind of don't like because I like for them to be wrapped up. But Body in the Freezer by Tom, what's his name? I just pulled this up and now I can't read it. That's one I would recommend. Tom Mann, sorry. Should have put my glasses on.
What were you thinking?
I don't wear glasses, so it was confusing. But yes, so that's a good one. What about you? Any true crime that you have off the top of your head?
Was it The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That's one that I've read it on my own, and then also as part of a book discussion as well. That's one that was a good read, an interesting read as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. We had a couple of different comments coming up. Let's see what else we've been asked for. Mystery or horror. Let's see. Cabin at the End of the World is definitely a good one for horror. And that is Paul Tremblay. Tremblay? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Probably not. I have really got to work on my pronunciations. But the name of the book is Cabin at the End of the World, or Head Full of Ghosts, same author. Also may want to take a look at that one. And then Grady Hendrix, My Best Friend's Exorcism. Also another good option.
Oh, I remember that one, yeah. Yeah, I read that one.
And then we've got, science fiction. This is all you, right? Or no, just fantasy, not science fiction?
I don't know, I would say a little more fantasy than science fiction, but science fiction as well. There's always a classic, Ender's Game. I recommend that to adults. I recommend that to teens as well.
See, when I went classic, I went, you looked at me and it threw me off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay, yes.
We did that for my book club recently, and I just love it. I've read it 3 or 4 times now, and I really enjoyed it. What about Good Omens? Would we consider that science fiction? Because that's a great book. Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett.
I was going to say, we can consider anything we want, but whether or not anyone else would consider that as well, that's a different discussion that we might be having.
Let me see what it's listed as. It's Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman, and it's really, really good. And it's very funny, which is interesting. Okay, it just says adult fiction, so maybe not, but it does have some fantasy fiction listed. Not the same. Okay, so not the same thing. So not a science fiction recommendation, but just randomly a quality book that you may enjoy. Good Omens. Okay, so science fiction. What else do we have? Ender's Game. I clearly have nothing because I don't know what falls under science fiction.
Let me think. Other science fiction books.
Brandon Sanderson. Are we looking for a read-alike for Brandon Sanderson? Okay. Read-alikes for Brandon Sanderson.
And that's the author, correct?
Yes. Are you going to be on that?
Yes, I will.
Okay. That's good because I have to admit I've actually never heard of Brandon Sanderson, so I might have to add him to my list when we find out. What do you think?
Well, he writes probably a lot of genres that are not necessarily your genres. I mean,
Is it science fiction again?
It's science fiction, but fantasy, epic fantasy, humorous, which I know you like humorous as well, but it's going to have more of the elements of steampunk superheroes. So, you know what? I say maybe try something new and try reading one of his books.
Okay, you know what? That is what my book club is for. Every month I read something new.
Okay, but some read-alikes. Dave Duncan is an author that I think he writes similar style as Brandon Sanderson, so that might be one that would appeal to you if you're interested. He does fantasy fiction, kind of the different swords and different realms type of a genres is what he is going to be writing. And some books that he's done, Ironfoot, Portal of 1,000 Worlds, let's see, The Eye of the Strife. So those are all books by Dave Duncan that you might be interested in. And let's see, who else? Of course, if you're thinking of, I was going to say, since Brandon Sanderson does write, fantasy and epic fantasy, of course, George R.R. Martin. I think it's one that
Game of Thrones.
that comes to mind. Have you read Game of Thrones?
No. And thank you for calling me
I
out.
think
You
I
knew
knew,
I had
I knew that answer, but I just wanted to double check. I mean, that's one that I think, there was the Loyal Filing before it became a TV show, and now there's other people that have been introduced to the book series.
Okay,
because
you
of the
called me
TV
out on that,
show.
but I'm skeptical that you have read it
I
either. I know
have.
that you've been watching the TV show,
I have as well.
but you
yes.
actually have read the entire series.
No, not the entire series. Well, it's not finished yet, so.
Yeah, but isn't the next one coming out in, like, I don't know.
I've read up to, I want to say, book 3 or 4. It was really funny. The very first time I got the audiobook for the very first book, and it was actually the book on CD, and it was like 2 of the CD cases together. It was over like 32 discs, and I thought, well, I do have a commute to work, so let me try listening to it. And I couldn't get through it, so I said, you know what, I need the book to be able to read it at my own pace, because there's such a vast amount of characters that sometimes I would have to kind of go back and refresh and remind myself, oh, who is this person? Their name is very similar to someone else. There's all different countries and lands, and also, are you one of the people? I always ask people, do you like seeing the map on the inside of the book? Because I like to go to the map and kind of look at it as I'm reading to get really the geography of the land that they're talking about. And it might be because I read more kind of fantasy type of books than you do. So maybe
I don't know. I feel like if there's a map at the beginning, that puts a lot of pressure on me. That I need to look at the map and then know what's happening.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily always like that. But again, that could be just. Okay,
Mhm.
that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna answer one comment real quick, and then there is a comment that is tailor made for you.
Oh.
I'm surprised you didn't put the comment in there. So someone mentioned John Scalzi as a favorite author.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to kind of switch gears or not switch gears, but based on that recommendation, come back for Beautiful Ruins by Jess Walter.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that would be a good one to try. And then also, The Salt Line by Holly Goddard Jones would also be another recommendation based on John Scalzi, who I'm probably mispronouncing his name. So coming back, someone actually asked for a read-alike for your Sarah J. Maas.
For Sarah J. Maas? Oh, that makes me so happy. For Sarah J. Maas, I would say...
Oh wait, let me throw in two, because the same person also mentioned Diana Gabaldon, and doesn't she?
Outlander.
Yes,
Outlander
which you were
series.
also a fan of.
Mm-hmm. So is it read-alikes for both of those?
Yes.
I can't see the comments. So.
Yes. Also, Paula Braxton, who I'm not familiar with, and Deb Harkness. All 4 were listed in that same.
Okay, we'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking for Sarah J. Maas, Rhodes is the author's last name. I'm going to say it's Morgan Rhodes. Let me double check that.
Yeah, that's all you, because I've never heard of that person. This is YA though, isn't it? YA fantasy.
Yeah, I would say it's YA fantasy, but I think this is one that translates to a lot adults are interested in as well. So, I mean, it is written on a YA scale, but let's see.
Oh, The Sorcerer's Appendix. I have heard of that.
For which one?
That's Paula Braxton.
Okay. The one that I'm thinking of is Falling Kingdoms is the title of the first book in the series, as well as just the entire series is called Falling Kingdoms, and that is by Morgan Rhodes. I think it's she writes similar to Sarah J. Maas. Also, if you are an R.R. Martin fan, I think you would also enjoy this series as well. A lot of times it's described as Game of Thrones for teens because a lot of the characters are younger, but it's very similar with kind of the situations and the character and world building going on as well. And then I would also say another YA author, I will make that distinction, is Amanda Hocking. She's written several series that I think would appeal to fans of Sarah J. Maas. She wrote the trilogy, think it was only 3 books in that one. I think it's the trilogy. As well as, what is the other one? The other series that she wrote, I think Frostfire is the first book in that series. So it might be called Frostfire, but that's the first book. So Amanda Hocking is another author. She's actually, it's interesting because she was a self-published author that got discovered and is now with a major publisher. So I think whenever you're interested in self-publishing, she's one that's really interesting to follow her story and see, you know, how she became a successful author that she is today. And
Self-publishing is a lot easier than it used to be as well. So it's a lot easier to do.
And let's see. And who's the I'm sorry, I can't remember. What are the other names that you
Paula
threw out
Braxton,
there? Okay.
which for that one, I would actually recommend a Jasper Fforde book, The Big Over Easy, which is, it definitely has that humorous element, which clearly I enjoy with pretty much everything.
And let's see, who else? See, with the Diana, how do you pronounce her last name? I know I always mispronounce it, and you're probably not the person to be asking me.
We've already established that I don't know how to pronounce people's names.
Diana Gabaldo? I want to say that's how you say it. I'm wondering if what if they're interested in the Scottish element of it, if it's because it's a historical fiction or time travel, because I know those are all kind of different different qualities of that series. It's so funny because I actually just put that on hold for someone just the other day. They're interested in it. And it's one of those books I'm like, well, let me put the first one on hold and let's just put the second one on hold too, because, you know, when you start a series, a lot of times you don't want to wait for the next one. So I try to line it up for them.
Someone was nice and did the phonetic pronunciation of her name. So it's Gabaldon.
Oh, okay. Gabaldon?
Gabaldon.
Gabaldon.
Do you want to see it?
Does it help? Okay.
It doesn't help you at all.
Well, it's nicer to see the comments because I don't see any of the comments coming through on mine, so I'm like just going off of whatever you have on there. I could just start
making stuff up randomly just to see what you would say, and you know, random authors and say,
someone
is asking for.
I would start answering it. I would. There's a trust that we have here. So.
Oh, I could just make up somebody and get you to recommend. And you're like, wait, who?
I know. I'll be sitting here frantically trying to
type
it
in
to find it.
Book? He might actually be an author. I don't know.
I was like, that's a very generic name. I'm sure there is a Bill Smith out there. But let me see. There is a series.
Ooh, The Thinking Woman's Guide to Magic by Emily Broker. Have you read that?
I have not. Have you?
I've never heard of it until just now, but we had a comment that said they were just finishing it up. Is it good? Would you recommend it? Should we read it? I'm gonna send that out to the Facebook universe and see what we get back.
See who responds to it. I like that. Let's see. I was also gonna recommend the Ruby Red series. That is by Kirsten Gier. Gier is how you pronounce her last name.
That's how you spell it, you mean? Because we don't know how you pronounce it.
No, yeah, that's how you spell it. I should amend. Yes, that's how you spell it. And that is a trilogy. It's, I want to say Ruby Red. The second one is either Emerald Green, and then there's Sapphire Blue. Or it might have the two, the second and third book might be
But they're
switched.
all on a color theme.
Yes, it's on a color theme. And that one's really a fun series. It takes place in England for most of the book. There is time travel involved in it, but I would say it's time travel done well.
As opposed to time travel not done well?
Yeah, there's just sometimes in books where I feel like when you use time travel that it just adds holes to the plots, and I'm like, well, if they could have gone back in time, then why didn't they go back and solve this problem from the beginning? I don't know, maybe it makes me overthink things and it takes me out of the story, but this is one that I would recommend a series. I like it. And then let's see, 'cause it just brought up another one that I was like, oh, I have read that one as well. The Finishing School series by Gail Carriger. I'm sorry, I know it's the worst. The Finishing School series, that one, again, it's YA, but there's a strong female protagonist. It's kind of like a steampunk book, I would say. So if you're interested in reading steampunk and you haven't read this book yet, or maybe you just want to explore that genre a little bit more, that this is a good series, I would say, to break into it. Yes, because you know it's set during the Victorian era. There's a little bit of I guess I would say maybe like paranormal elements to it, without giving away too much. But I mean, it is a historical fantasy with steampunk elements. And just overall, there were just parts where, I mean, I was really laughing out loud, that I was like, oh, that's quite witty how that was written, or some of the responses. So that is another series that I like, that I would recommend for fans of the different authors that we've been talking about.
Quite witty.
Quite witty.
That's how you talk to yourself in your head.
It's a British book. I mean, it takes place in England a lot too. So when I read it in my mind, I'm using the accents, or at least what I think the accent is. You know, it gets a little confusing when we have multiple accents going on. But hey, I roll with it, and it makes it more lively and entertaining. You should sit in on some of the story times that I do at the library or for my kids at home. I try to do accents. Notice I said try. I'm well aware that it's not.
I've heard you try to do some accents, and that's why I was surprised. But
I think it just adds a little bit more.
I'm glad that you tried.
Yes.
We did have somebody ask or recommend The Martian, and ask if someone has read that, and I embarrassingly have to admit that I did not read that because space is not really my personal thing, but I've heard it's very good. Oh, you know, a thriller that I'm actually going to read, and it is a little bit outside of my reading zone, but I want to read it before I go see the movie, is A Simple Favor.
Okay.
I can't think of the author. Give me a second. But the movie just came out with Blake Lively and the girl from Pitch Perfect.
Anna Kendrick.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So before I see the movie, I want to make sure I've read the book, because you know I like to read the book first. I know that you don't, because you can't keep from talking during the movie to say the spoilers, but it's Darcy Bell, A Simple Favor. And I hear there's a twist at the end that is very...
Did you say you started it already, or you're going to?
No, I've already requested it. I've got it on the way, so I can see it in theaters before the movie leaves. But I'm very excited about it. I don't know what the twist is, but I'm excited to find out.
Well, let me know as soon as you read it. Let me know if you recommend it to me. Or to anyone else, maybe next week, or not next week, you won't have it done by then.
Oh, and somebody agreed A Simple Favor was a great book, so that's even better. I like Anna Kendrick a lot, even though I can't remember her name. I like her movies.
It's just like all of our favorite authors. We don't remember their names either,
but if the book sticks with me, that's what counts. We actually got a really interesting question that is not quite book related, specifically, but it is about the library and some of our what we offer. So it's what's so great about the Libby app? Does it replace Overdrive and Hoopla? Okay, so it does not replace Hoopla because that is a separate thing. It does replace the Overdrive app. Libby is the updated Overdrive app, as opposed to just updating that app. They created an entire new platform, and that's Libby. So anything you would use Overdrive for, you can now use Libby, and I do think it's a lot more user-friendly and easier just to access in general. Once you've got the Libby app downloaded, you can do everything right there. You know, browse the library, download your books, read them. You can set them to download automatically, which I like to do because I usually check stuff out while I'm on Wi-Fi, and I like for it to go ahead and download to my phone. And so that is with Overdrive specifically. Hoopla, I still would recommend that you have that app depending on what you're looking for. Hoopla does very good with music and movies.
And audiobooks.
I'm not saying they don't have audiobooks. I'm just saying that Overdrive has some movies, but they don't have a lot. Whereas Hoopla has a lot of movies, and they're very popular new release movies. The same with music. You can get CDs when they come out, and you get them for 7 days for free. Check them out, listen to them before you commit to buy. And it is popular music that you would like. But again, Hoopla does have audiobooks and ebooks. They kind of balance each other with Overdrive. So if we don't have something on Overdrive, then it's very possible we would have it on Hoopla.
Yes.
So those two you kind of want to keep, but Libby can replace your Overdrive app. Do you like that I'm drawing it over here?
I
It will
know.
replace
That's giving me a
this app.
visual. That's good.
Where does that?
One thing I want to cut in and say is that with Hoopla, it's an instant download. You don't have to wait for a copy of the audiobook or
If
for
somebody
that
has it on
video
hold.
to be available for you to check out. If you find it in Hoopla, you can go ahead and click borrow and then check it out right away. Now on Overdrive or on Libby, sometimes there is still going to be that waiting list depending on how popular the item is. So there's a possibility that you might be able to check it out right away if no one's waiting for it. But if it is something that's really popular, like the book I'm currently reading, The Girl Wash Your Face, I think that one has over, I don't know, last time I checked, it was like almost like 400 holds on it. I mean, we have lots and lots of copies of it, but there is still going to be that waiting list for it. So what I like to do, a little search strategy that I do is, I'll look on Hoopla first. If I don't see it there for the instant download, then I'll go to Libby, or sometimes I'll go to Libby first, just depending, like you say, on what it is I'm looking for, whether it's music or audiobook or video. So I have both of the apps downloaded on my phone, and I use them frequently to.
I do as well. Yeah. I mean, I do tend to use Hoopla more for music, but I do like to check it.
And with Hoopla, you can have 12 items checked out per month. Am I correct on that? You have 12?
12 or 10?
I think it's 10. I think it's 10. Okay.
Really? Because you just said you thought it was 12.
Well, I don't want to mislead anyone, so I'm going to go with the lower number, but it's up to 10.
I think it's 10 a month.
I've never hit that limit before, so.
Well, what are you doing with your time, Allie? Clearly,
I
if you're
don't
not
know.
using all of your checkouts, I mean, come on.
I know. I'll have to step up my my Hoopla
Well,
game
you
a little
have
bit
kids.
more.
It takes some time out of your day. I get that. They like to eat and stuff. I understand. So I'm loving these comments. So we did get the thumbs up to recommend the Thinking Woman's Guide.
Okay.
The Thinking Woman's Guide to Magic by Emily Broker. Jennifer says that is great. And if my comments are in order, I believe that it's about 25 hours on audiobook. So that's nice. And then someone else, well, because sometimes you want to really get invested, and if you have a 6-hour audiobook, then it's one road trip and it's done.
That's true.
Neither here nor there. And also, someone agreed with you that Girl Wash Your Face is very good. They also got it via Overdrive, so way to go.
Yay, there's more people out there. We agree on it. That makes me happy.
More people with your reading taste, that's scary. But yeah, so we are running out of time, so we're going to wrap up. We want to thank everyone who joined us in the chat today, and thank you for your recommendations. It always adds a little bit to our to-be-read list. I do want to remind you that we will be doing Facebook Live again next week, Wednesday, September the 26th. And next week will actually be an interesting and fun conversation because it is Banned Book Week, so we can talk about everybody's favorite banned book.
Oh, that'll be
Which
fun.
I already know what you're gonna say.
Don't spoil it.
Nope.
No
We're
spoilers.
gonna have to tune in next week to find out what Allie's favorite banned book is. But we will be talking about that. So Wednesday, September the 26th, 12 to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, a quick reminder that it is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. So if you don't have your library card, I highly recommend it. It will be the most valuable card in your wallet. It takes 5 minutes at your local library. We will see you guys next week.